I'm Sophie. I'm a social security and housing lawyer with Canberra Community Law, and we thought it might be useful to host a little Facebook Live Q&A, given that the government has been making some rapid fire announcements about Centrelink and what you can and can't expect to happen over the next little while. I'll start by saying that it's a rapidly moving feast and things are changing really quickly. So, we'll give the best information that we have now, but also be prepared to keep checking and to make sure your information is up to date. So we've had a few questions come through separate channels, but I might just start by speaking broadly about some of the announcements that the government has made so far. So, as you will all know, the biggest announcement that the government has made recently is around the coronavirus supplement payment. So, for those of you who are already receiving a Centrelink payment, if you're in one of the eligible payments, you will automatically receive a couple of things from the government. So the first thing is the coronavirus supplement. That's a $550 per fortnight sort of additional, like a top-up to the payment that you're already receiving. So the types of payments that receive the coronavirus supplement are the job seeker payment, so that's the same as the New Start allowance, it's just shifted over. The youth allowance, sickness allowance, ab study, odd study, parenting payment, partner allowance, widow allowance, farm household allowance, and special benefit. So if you've already been on any of those payments, you don't need to do anything. And if you intend to be on one of those payments, so probably the job seeker payment is most relevant to most people, then you need to apply for that before the 13th. Sorry, no you don't. You just need to apply for that and you'll get the coronavirus supplement hopefully on the 27th of April. The deadline of the 13th comes into play for the second announcement that the government made, which was around a $750 one-off economic support payment. So that's just an injection of funds directly into your bank account. It's not an ongoing payment like the coronavirus supplement. You'll get the first $750 payment if you're receiving one of those payments that I just rattled off then, if you're receiving that payment between the 12th of March and the 13th of April. And you'll receive a second payment if you're in a different cohort. So those are people who are receiving an eligible payment but aren't receiving the coronavirus supplement. So most importantly, not most importantly, but probably the most relevantly for people, that's folks on the DSP. So the disability support pension at this stage, unfortunately, is not in receipt of the coronavirus supplement, but will be in receipt of a second $750 economic support payment, which they'll receive in July. So for everyone in that category, if you're already on your Centrelink payments, you don't need to do anything. And you probably shouldn't, because Centrelink wait times are huge at the moment. You just need to wait and you'll receive those payments and that additional top up automatically. One thing for you to note though is if you were on the type of payment that required you to fulfill mutual obligations, so for example the New Start allowance, now job seeker, or maybe a parenting payment, then you don't need to do those mutual obligations, at least until the end of this month, the 27th of April, and then hopefully we'll have another update from the government about what's going to happen there. If you're receiving a Centrelink payment already, but something has changed for you recently, so maybe you've lost your job and you're working part-time as well as receiving a Centrelink payment, or you might have had your shifts cut, or maybe your partner has and you're on a payment that's affected by your partner's income, then you need to let Centrelink know. But if you're on the payment that you're meant to be on, you don't need to do anything else to become eligible for the coronavirus supplement, that extra $550 per fortnight, or the one-off payments. So you can let Centrelink know via your MyGov, or you can call them. We definitely don't recommend going in person to your Centrelink office at the moment, just because the wait times are so long. But if you do have some updates to provide around your income or your partner's income, then you can do that online or on the phone. The third category of people that I'll just quickly touch on before addressing some of the questions is if you're not receiving a Centrelink payment and maybe you never have, and you don't know what to do to go about starting the sort of process of trying to work out whether you're eligible or not. We've built a little tool that might help you. It's called canigetcentrelink.com.au, and it will step by step take you through working out whether or not you're eligible and how to get set up. But in brief, you'll need to set up a MyGov account, and you just do that online with mygov.org.au. You will need an email address to register. So once you do that, you'll need to link it to Medicare or to the Australian Tax Office. You can just do this via the services dashbar within the MyGov website. Once you've done that, you've really got two options. You can either go through the process of trying to obtain a Centrelink reference number. If you have received Centrelink in the past, then this is a 9-digit number with a letter on the end that you can see on any letters you've received from Centrelink or on a concession card or something like that. But that can be a bit of a difficult process. You need to call Centrelink to get it. You can't just do it online. So you can just skip that step. The government has changed the requirement so that you can just skip that step and go straight on to registering your intention to apply for a payment. So if as a result of the coronavirus or the sort of economic impacts that have flown from that, so for example, cafes being shut, or perhaps you worked in the events industry and projects that you're working on are no longer going ahead, or you've had to stop working in order to care for children, or you've had to stop working because of self-isolation, any of those kind of reasons, you might be eligible for a job seeker payment. Probably youth allowance if you're between 16 and 21 years old, the job seeker payment if you're between 22 and 66, or the parenting payment. If you register your intention to apply, that's a really quick online process that you don't need a CRN for, just the MyGov. Then Centrelink will call you and will help you do the rest. And your payment will be backdated to the point at which you registered your intention to apply. So you should do that now so that you can get the maximum payment when Centrelink does get through that backlog of people who have all been applying furiously over the last few days. And just remember that you need to lodge that intention to apply before April the 13th if you want to receive the first of those $750 one-off economic support payments. The one other thing I'll just mention here, but this isn't something that I'll go into, is you might have heard about a job keeper payment. This is different from the job seeker payment. So we've been talking about the job seeker payment. That's something that you might want to apply for through Centrelink over this period of time. Job keeper payment is something that an employer, so potentially your boss, can apply to be a part of, and the government gives the employer money to keep on their employees, so $1,500 a fortnight, so that they can effectively keep people on the books even if there isn't work for them to do right now. So you can talk to your boss about this, let them know that that scheme exists, but that's not something that you can apply for unless you're a sole trader or you fall into one of those exemptions. But generally speaking, it's not something that an employee can apply for. That happens through the ATO. So you can look at the ATO website if you want to find out more about that. Okay. One question that we have is around someone wondering whether they should submit their DSP application now. She has all her evidence ready. Will it still be processed as normal? So there are a couple of difficult things with the DSP payment. There's no reason like, you absolutely can continue to apply for whatever Centrelink payments you need, non-coronavirus related Centrelink payments. Centrelink is functioning, as it normally would, with the big caveat that everything is going to be slower because there is such a huge demand on Centrelink at the moment. The difficulty with the DSP is that if you're already on the disability support pension payment, the government has recommended that you stay on that. You don't try to shift it over or do anything like that. If you're not on it already, though, it's actually coming out to be at a lower rate than the job seeker payment plus the coronavirus supplement. So that's the $550 per fortnight that kicks in on the 27th of April. So there's a financial question for you to consider for yourself. If you would be eligible for the job seeker payment, if you didn't apply for the DSP, you may want to consider that, applying for that, because you get that extra $550 supplement for the duration of this crisis, or at least the next 6 months, the government has said, and then make a decision about the DSP application. But that's a financial question to weigh up. There's no reason not to apply for the DSP now, except that the wait time is likely to be long. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. It's really a question for you to work out what you think in terms of the finances. There's no sort of reason why you shouldn't legally apply for the DSP now. If you access your super, is that considered income for Centrelink purposes? That's a good question. I don't know. I might have to take that one on notice and get back to you. One thing I will say is that there's obviously been some announcements around accessing your super, and there's been some talk about whether or not people should be doing that in situations of financial hardship. Obviously that has consequences for you later down the track, and we would recommend, if you're based in Canberra, that you talk to Care Financial Counselling, or that you seek some financial advice around that, just because of the long-term implications. But I'll post back to you, Claudia, on this Facebook comment stream, and let you know whether or not that's counted. Should clarify accessing super as part of the new measures to increase access for financial hardship. Yeah, understood. So if people are already on a Centrelink payment and are experiencing financial hardship, there are Centrelink specific payments that you can apply for. So some of you will be aware of, things like Centrelink can give you your normal advance on payments. There's also a range of interest-free loan options. So those are other things to consider if it is a short-term, contained injection of funds that's required. Otherwise, I think the intention of the announcement so far is that hopefully the $750 payment that should be arriving in people's bank accounts over the next month, hopefully that can provide some sort of immediate relief, and then the ongoing support via the coronavirus supplement. Do we have any other questions? That's okay, Claudia. Can I access Centrelink in person at the moment? What if I have trouble accessing MyGov? So, you can go into your Centrelink offices. They are open. If at all possible, it's been recommended by Centrelink not to, for a couple of reasons. One is that you probably have seen the news coverage that are showing queues going around the block. So that's obviously both unpleasant for you, but also given the public health measures in place to try to stop us coming in contact with each other, that's potentially a risky health move. So yes, you can go in, but it's really recommended that you don't. If you have trouble accessing MyGov, the best thing to do is to call them. So people are getting through. Our clients are telling us they are getting through. They're just sitting on the phone for a long period of time. So if you go to the Centrelink website, you can find whatever payment you're either trying to access or want to ask a question about. You can find the relevant number there. So there's a job seeker number you can call. There's a number you can call if you want to inquire about a parenting payment. So look up that number, call, have something to do so that you can be doing that while you sit on hold for a little bit. And then hopefully Centrelink will be able to sort it out. But definitely phone or online is preferred to in person. I've asked my landlord, I've got a question here about asking for a rental reduction or a freeze as this person and their roommates have lost their jobs due to the coronavirus. Yeah, okay, so they've been asked to provide a range of documents and they're uncomfortable with providing some of them. What rights do they have to access these documents, or just advice in general for the situation? So no one has any right to any of that information. It's entirely up to you what information you want to provide. So I guess there are a few things to say here. So Canberra Community Law provides advice to clients who are in public housing, not private housing. So just take this as some sort of general information. The first thing is that there's been an announcement made at a national level to say that there should be a moratorium on evictions for folks who are facing financial hardship due to the coronavirus over the next 6 months. Now, it's up to state and territories how they implement that. There has been some movement at the ACT level today, and hopefully we can provide some more detailed information about that as that legislation and the directives that come out of it become clearer. But there's certainly a big public push to make sure that people don't get thrown in the deep end by their landlords over this time. I think you've done the right thing by contacting the landlord property manager in the first instance. They don't have any, you are under no obligation to access your superannuation early, nor to provide a sort of, you've called it a weekly expenditure. So, some sort of documentation of how you're spending your money. I think what would be appropriate is for you to provide evidence that your financial situation has changed. So a separation certificate from your employer, or if that's not available, some sort of statement that shows that your employment situation has changed. If they really wanted additional information, you could do a stat dec or write a letter that confirms that that's the case and what your financial situation is. But absolutely, you shouldn't be in a situation where landlords are putting pressure on you in any way to access your super early or to do anything like that. That's not appropriate behaviour at all. So I would go with the first thing that you've suggested, which is providing evidence of the employment change. If you run into further trouble once you've done that and requested the rental holiday or a rent reduction or a bit of relief, then I'd be contacting legal aid, who are now providing tenancy advice for private rentals, and request that they provide you with some ongoing assistance. But do remember that we're in a context now where the ACT government has made an in-principle commitment to be honouring that national moratorium on rental evictions due to the coronavirus for the next 6 months. So you're likely to have some protection there. It's just a question of how that plays out. So Molly said, asked a question about, just before I do that, your username is soap in response to your question. We'll also just post in the comments the links that you can follow to get that additional information and to contact legal aid if you need further support. For Molly, she's asked for people that can't access MyGov for reasons of disability or limited internet access, what's the best way to submit Centrelink forms? At the moment, Molly's using postal services, but this is really slow. Any suggestions? Yeah, it's extremely difficult. the most encouraged way is to submit the forms and to do it online using MyGov, but obviously that isn't possible for everybody. Unfortunately, Centrelink also doesn't provide paper copies that, organisations like mine can sit down and go through with you for everything. So, for example, you didn't used to be able to get a copy of the New Start Allowance paper form on behalf of your clients to go through with them. So that makes it really tough. In situations like that, I think the first thing that I would do is to call Centrelink, although I can see another question coming down below that says people are having trouble getting through. But calling Centrelink and getting them to fill it in on their end on the computer is one potential option. They have social workers that should be able to go through that process with you. If it really, really isn't working, this may be one of the situations in which you go into the Centrelink office. And hopefully if everybody else does it online or on the phone, then there won't be too many people there. But I definitely try calling first and see if you can request a social worker to assist you to input all that data into the computer from their end so that you can just do it over the phone. Yeah, so another question saying the phone line with Centrelink is just ringing out and they can't get through. Unfortunately, I think that situation is going to persist. To be honest, I only have 2 bits of advice. It's an extremely frustrating situation. One is if you can do it through MyGov, do it through MyGov. So even if you can't go through the whole process of actually registering the payment that you want to apply for, if you can at least register your intention to apply, which should be a really quick, simple process, then I would do that online and then Centrelink can call you back and you'll still have your payment backdated to the point at which you submitted that intention to claim. Again, you can have a look and find the details to that on the canigetcentrelink.com.au website. The other option is to just keep calling. So we have heard what you've said from our clients, that the phone is just ringing out, but persistence seems to be the only thing that's working. So I would say, yeah, call more, or if you can, do it online. Are there any other questions that folks have? I'm just having a quick look through. Looks like we've got most of them. Maybe some other things that I could just mention is that there was an announcement made this afternoon about childcare. And so we did have, hold on, I'm just getting it up, childcare. So the announcement that was made this afternoon by the Prime Minister said that they were going to provide basically an economic package to childcares so that they didn't have to pass on the normal cost of the service to consumers, so that parents who have their kids in childcare so that they can work could continue to use that and not have to pay. As far as, there has been some confusion around how parents on Centrelink payments accessing childcare can continue to do that when their financial circumstances have changed. This potentially will alleviate some of that pressure. It's not entirely clear when that will come into being and will have a real life impact, but we'll certainly post updates about it when we know more. That at the moment, from the announcement today, appears to apply to folks who already have their kids enrolled in childcare. And then if there's space within the childcare program, so if all the slots aren't filled, then it could be extended to new enrolments. But at this stage, it's just for existing kids who are already enrolled in childcare. But that's the announcement that came through this afternoon. What sort of Centrelink matters can Canberra Community Law help with generally, and are we still open? Yes, we're still open in a sort of virtual and telephonic sense. The physical office isn't open at the moment because of the coronavirus, but our phone line is still operating, which Canberra Community Law will post in the comments, and you can access our services by emailing info@canberracommunitylaw.org.au and book an appointment with one of our solicitors that way. So if you do have any Centrelink concerns, really. So, just non-coronavirus related. So, for example, maybe you have a Centrelink debt and you're wondering how you're going to pay it off. Maybe that is coronavirus related. You have a Centrelink debt, you've been paying it off and now you can't afford to anymore because of your change in circumstance. What do you do? Or you want to apply for the disability support pension, or you've had it rejected and you want to know how to appeal. Or maybe you can't access child support payments and Centrelink are saying that you've got to get them from your ex-partner if you're going to receive your Centrelink benefit. Any of the questions around Centrelink we can still help with, coronavirus related or otherwise. You can either call us on the general line, which Canberra Community Law will post, or you can email us, and someone at reception will, in both situations, they'll take just a few initial details from you and then book you in for an appointment with a solicitor like myself, and we will give you advice over the phone. If it's a bigger matter, we can talk about, giving you some more advice over time, but in the first instance, we'll try to give you some initial advice on the spot so that, so that you can get on your way with resolving the issue. That also applies for anyone who is living in public housing or community housing and is facing any issues that they want legal advice with. Everything from maybe your situation has changed with the coronavirus and you're having trouble meeting rent with your public housing provider or your community housing provider, we can assist with that, or it might just be general issues that you need help with, so repairs or maintenance or how any of that even happens in the current context. So please do keep calling and emailing us and we'll organise for a solicitor to speak to you. So Molly has asked a question about the disability support pension. About whether there's any disadvantages or risks like to eligibility if people apply for Job Seeker now, because you do get a bit more money when it's combined with the coronavirus supplement, the $550 per fortnight, but have intentions to apply for DSP or would want to apply for the DSP long term. That's a really good question. I think the risks lie mostly with people who are currently on the DSP. So if you're on the disability support pension, there are definitely risks with trying to transfer over to the job seeker payment. I suspect you'd probably be able to transfer over to the job seeker payment, fine. But the problem would be then when this crisis is over and when that 6-month boost, so that extra $550 a fortnight, when that goes away, you're going to be stuck on a lower payment stream. And that I don't know, like of course we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it's definitely possible that that could be used sort of as adverse evidence against you to say, well, if you really needed a disability support pension, how come you could shift over onto the job seeker payment? So I'd be really careful about that. Certainly a range of organisations are currently lobbying the government to try to get extra support for the disability support pension for folks who are on it, so that they aren't disadvantaged comparatively with this new scheme. So hopefully there can be some success there and people won't be having to ask themselves these questions. In the converse, however, so if you're not on the disability support pension, I think that there would be low risks to you applying for the job seeker payment now because you're eligible for it. Just as, for example, quite often I would assist clients who are on the New Start payment but want to get onto the disability support pension. They're totally eligible to be receiving that New Start now job seeker payment up until the point that they're found to be eligible for the DSP, and then they shift onto that, and that's the payment they intend to stay on. So I don't think that there's any problem with it. Just, of course, always be completely honest with Centrelink. So long as you're honest, I don't think that there's going to be any problem with you applying for the payment that's easiest for you to get right now. But definitely switching the other way, DSP onto the job seeker payment, that could have big problems, and I'd caution that approach. So hi, if you're on a low income, less than the new dole level, but not on Centrelink, can you still get a Centrelink? Can you still get a stimulus payment? Not sure I totally understand the question, but But if you're on a low, first thing is that the government has changed a bunch of the eligibility criteria. So have a look at the website. I'll post it in response to you, Kate, in a sec, to check whether you fall within the threshold and would be eligible for the job seeker payment. If you fall within that threshold, then you should register your intention to apply for the job seeker payment, and then you will receive, if you're successful in getting that payment, then you'll receive the $750 and the coronavirus supplement. If you're outside of that threshold and you're not eligible for the payment, then no. So the stimulus payments are attached to those particular payments that I read out at the beginning. So the job seeker payment, youth allowance, sickness allowance, ab study, odd study, parenting payment, partner allowance, widow allowance, farm household allowance, and special benefits. So they're attached to each other. So if you're not eligible, then no, you won't get the extra supplement or the $750 sort of stimulus payment. Hopefully that answers your questions, but I'll post in response to you, Kate, the direct link so that you can have a look at that table and see whether your income does fall within it or not. You've also asked why don't people who get the disability support pension get the supplement? That is a very good question, and it's a question for the government. I don't know. I suspect that someone who doesn't have a disability and it's not on the disability support payment has thought that they won't be adversely impacted by the coronavirus, but haven't recognised that the cost of sort of surviving is extremely different for people right now. You know, people are requiring all sorts of different services. They're not able to get to the shops and get what they need. There's a whole range of changes that are impacting on people and the cost of living. And so, you know, that there is definitely a concerted push from the community sector to try to get the government to recognise that and to provide additional support for people on the disability support pension. That's a really good question. Kate, I'm not allowed to give individual legal advice over Facebook Live. I see that you've posted your income there, but I will post you that link so that you can check it, and hopefully that'll work for you. But if you do want legal advice, specifically for your situation, Canberra Community Law has posted in the comments the phone number you can call or the email, and I'd be really happy to talk to you in that context as well. Okay, are there any other questions? Maybe that's it. I might just to wrap it up, touch on the fact that, you know, obviously these are stressful times for everybody, and just some like things that are good to have in mind, I guess, is that for, you know, with the Centrelink side of things, for folks who haven't applied for Centrelink before, who haven't accessed it before, there can be some sort of emotional baggage around doing that, but also it can just be really daunting and difficult to do. I'd really encourage you to sort of try to get over any mental barriers you have to it. It's called a social security safety net because it's meant to be a safety net and to help people out when times are tough. And I think a global pandemic is a definition of a really tough time for folks. And the sooner you can apply for a payment that you're entitled to, the better, because it's going to be backdated. So you're going to get more of that support that you need. But also you need to apply before the 13th of April. If you're eligible for the $750 lump sum payment, you've got to get in before the 13th in order to receive that. So that's in less than 2 weeks. So I just strongly encourage people to do that. Please call or use Centrelink or online if you can, rather than going to the office. And if you have specific legal questions or you need help, please call us and you'll be booked in with a solicitor like me, who can talk to you over the phone, email you advice and help you get the issue sorted out. With housing, Also understand that people are going to be in a situation where it's really stressful, trying to make ends meet, trying to pay rent. We've already seen an example in the comments of someone who's had a bit of pressure applied to them by the landlord. Perhaps we can do another Q&A like this, but around housing issues. But the most important thing I think for people to know, and it's not always clear, is that your landlord cannot just kick you out and tell you to leave your house. It has to go through a whole process, including getting to a tribunal, and then a tribunal makes a decision. So please don't ever make any rash decisions around housing if you are experiencing some pressure. If you have a private tenancy and you're in difficulty, please call legal aid. The number's also been posted there in the comments. And if you're in public housing or community housing, please call us and we can provide you with some assistance. So, okay, that tax question is a bit out of the purview of the sort of social security side of things. I would recommend that your friend contact Care Financial Counselling. Perhaps one of my colleagues who's listening into this could post the contact details for Care Financial Counselling in response to Kate's question, so that she can put your friend in touch with them and they'll be able to give him financial advice about what to do with that situation and to try to prevent him from getting a fine. Great. So we've got a question that says, can we do another session in a month or two? Absolutely. Please post in the comments if you would like us to do sessions on particular topics. So we can talk about anything to do with Centrelink and social security or housing. And yeah, if there are particular issues or questions or areas that you want us to focus on, hopefully we can host another session like this and provide you with some information that's useful. But thank you for tuning in, for giving your questions. It's been really great to connect with you all online. And again, if you've got any further issues that you want to talk to a solicitor about, please call or email us. We're still open, just not in the physical office. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.